In the relentless and ever-bustling heart of New York City, amidst the towering skyscrapers and neon lights, stood an imposing mansion that was a living testament to the unyielding ambition of Henry Walker. At 55, Henry was not merely a titan of the industry, but a colossus in the steel market. His enterprise, Walker Industries, commanded an unparalleled dominance that few dared to challenge. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. His tall, statuesque figure, accentuated by his silver hair that gleamed under the office lights, and his perpetually stern expression, carved a presence that evoked both profound respect and an underlying current of fear. Within the lavishly adorned walls of his office, a space adorned with striking industrial art, meticulously curated antiques, and framed photographs chronicling his humble beginnings and meteoric rise, Henry scrutinized quarterly reports with a meticulousness bordering on obsession. "We must enhance our efficiency," he muttered with steely resolve, his voice echoing through the cavernous expanse of the room, reverberating off the grand, ornate clock that marked the passage of time with a solemn chime. The clock struck 6, yet Henry remained undaunted, immersed in his ceaseless endeavor. To him, discipline and relentless hard work were not just principles but sacrosanct values he yearned to instill in his only son, Michael, despite the widening chasm between their worlds. Michael Walker, now 25, was a striking counterpoint to his father's relentless drive. His gentle demeanor and unassuming charm set him worlds apart from Henry's commanding presence. Raised in an environment of unparalleled luxury, Michael had grown accustomed to a life where comfort and ease were constants. His natural allure, coupled with a kind-hearted nature, made him a magnetic presence to those around him, yet he lacked the steeliness and unyielding resolve that defined his father's character. Despite benefiting from the finest educational institutions and engaging in numerous prestigious leadership programs, Michael found himself perennially struggling to meet the towering standards his father had set. His every endeavor was shadowed by a daunting expectation to measure up to the formidable legacy of Henry Walker. "Good evening, Dad," Michael greeted, his voice carrying a blend of respect and weariness as he stepped into the office. Henry's acknowledgement was a mere formality, his gaze remaining fixed on the endless stream of documents before him. "Have you had a chance to review the latest project proposals?" "Yes, I have," Michael responded, presenting a meticulously organized folder, his face etched with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "But there is another matter I wish to discuss with you." Henry, enveloped in the gravitas of pressing concerns, abruptly cut him off. "We have urgent issues that demand immediate attention." Michael, well acquainted with his father's brusque manner, exhaled a resigned sigh, retreating to his private quarters. His room, a spacious and opulent suite, was a sanctuary of luxury, but it offered little solace from the weight of his father's expectations. Behind a hidden bookshelf lay Michael's secret haven, a small, intimate studio where he could momentarily escape the stifling pressure and immerse himself in his passion for painting. Tonight, as he stepped into this private retreat, he sought refuge and solace through his art, yearning for a brief respite from the relentless demands of his father's world and the suffocating weight of inherited expectations. In stark contrast to the grandeur of the Walker mansion, the life of Sarah Miller unfolded in the modest confines of a Brooklyn apartment. At 23, Sarah was the sole pillar of support for her family, shouldering the relentless burden of providing for them through her demanding job as a cleaner. Her days were filled with grueling labor, scrubbing floors until her hands ached and polishing surfaces until they gleamed. Despite the exhaustion that marked her daily routine, Sarah faced each challenge with unwavering determination and resilience. Her strength stemmed from a deep and abiding love for her ailing mother and younger brother, whose well-being was intricately linked to her unyielding efforts. Each task she undertook was imbued with a profound sense of responsibility and devotion, as she navigated the hardships of her own life with grace and an indefatigable spirit. One early morning, As the first golden rays of sunlight began to filter through the sprawling cityscape, Sarah Miller arrived at the Walker mansion for her cleaning shift. The mansion, a beacon of opulence and grandeur, seemed almost to shimmer in the early light, its hallways adorned with luxurious fixtures and fine art. Sarah moved quietly through these magnificent corridors, her presence subtle yet significant. Her every step was marked by a profound sense of duty and diligence, though her efforts went largely unnoticed by the mansion's inhabitants. Michael Walker, unable to find sleep and restless with thoughts of his own life's meaning, wandered through the mansion's expansive halls. It was there, in the hushed serenity of the early morning, that he encountered Sarah. He observed her as she meticulously cleaned the grand staircase, her concentration unwavering. The sight of her heart at work, her focus evident in every deliberate motion, struck Michael deeply. He found himself reflecting on the stark contrast between her life of labor and his world of privilege and ease. "Good morning," Michael greeted, his voice breaking the silence and startling Sarah. "Good morning, Mr. Walker," Sarah replied, her tone polite yet tinged with caution. Encounters with the Walker family were rare and often intimidating, leaving her wary of such interactions. "Please, just call me Michael," he said, offering a warm and genuine smile. "You're always here so early." "There's much to be done before the day truly begins," Sarah explained, her eyes betraying the weariness that accompanied her long hours. Michael nodded, a pang of guilt tugging at him as he realized the extent of the privilege he had long taken for granted. "I admire your dedication," he said with heartfelt sincerity. "Thank you," Sarah responded, a touch of warmth seeping into her voice. "It's necessary." Henry Walker had always been a keen observer, his sharp eye missing little that occurred within his domain. Over the months, he had taken note of Sarah Miller's unwavering commitment and integrity. Her work was marked by meticulous attention and honesty, qualities that had not escaped Henry's discerning gaze. One morning, as he sipped his coffee and gazed out of his office window, he overheard a conversation between two senior employees discussing the themes of loyalty and dedication. The discussion resonated deeply with him, sparking an idea that would challenge his son Michael in ways he hadn't anticipated. Determined that his son needed a profound lesson in humility and responsibility, lessons that could only be imparted by someone embodying these very virtues, Henry made a pivotal decision. He knew precisely who could catalyze this transformation. Later that evening, Henry summoned Michael to his office. The room was dimly lit, with only the soft, warm glow of an antique lamp illuminating the rich mahogany of Henry's desk. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken expectations as Michael entered, his curiosity mingling with a sense of foreboding. "Michael, please take a seat," Henry began, his voice carrying an unusual blend of gentleness and firmness. Michael complied, sensing that this conversation would veer away from their usual business-oriented discussions. "What's this about, Dad?" Michael asked, his mind racing to anticipate the nature of this unexpected dialogue. Henry leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled thoughtfully. "I've been reflecting on your future, Michael. It's clear that you need to understand what it truly means to be responsible and to grasp the value of hard work and humility." Michael's brow furrowed in confusion. "I thought I was doing well at the office," he said, his voice laced with bewilderment. "You are performing admirably in business," Henry acknowledged, "but there's more to life than just professional success. You need grounding and perspective. That's why I've decided you should marry Sarah." Michael's eyes widened in disbelief. "Marry Sarah?" "The cleaner." "Yes, Sarah," Henry confirmed with a resolute nod. "She represents the very qualities you lack: hard work, honesty, and responsibility. These are traits you need to learn and appreciate." Michael's thoughts raced, grappling with the absurdity of the proposal. However, he knew well enough not to challenge his father's authority openly. "But Dad, Marriage isn't something you can just arrange like a business deal." Henry's expression hardened with steely resolve. "This is not merely about marriage, Michael. It's about shaping your character. If you respect my judgment, you'll understand why this step is crucial." Faced with no viable alternative, Michael reluctantly acquiesced, though his heart was heavy with unease. "Very well, Dad. If you believe this is the best course of action, I will do it." The following day, Henry sought out Sarah, finding her in the library, diligently dusting the shelves with practiced care. Her concentration was momentarily interrupted as she looked up in surprise upon seeing him. "Mr. Walker, can I assist you with something?" Sarah asked, her voice respectful but laced with caution. Her eyes reflected a mixture of curiosity and unease, as if she sensed that this encounter was about to shift the balance of her life. "Yes," Sarah Henry began, his voice carrying an unusual gravity. "I have a proposition for you that I believe will benefit both you and my son, Michael." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise and confusion. "Marry Michael? But why on earth would you suggest such a thing?" Henry's expression remained serious, his gaze steady. "Because I believe you embody the values Michael desperately needs to learn. Your unwavering dedication, honesty, and integrity are qualities that have become increasingly rare, and they are precisely what my son lacks. Through you, he might come to understand the true meaning of responsibility and humility." He paused for a moment before adding, "In return, I am prepared to offer you a substantial financial incentive. This includes covering your mother's medical expenses and ensuring your brother's education is fully funded." Sarah's thoughts raced, her mind reeling from the gravity of the offer. The prospect of financial relief for her family was undeniably enticing, but the personal implications of such a proposal were daunting and overwhelming. "This is a lot to consider, Mr. Walker," she said, her voice betraying a hint of anxiety. "I understand," Henry said, his tone softening slightly. "Take the time you need to think it over. But remember, this is not just about my son. It is a significant opportunity for you and your family, a chance to improve your lives in ways you may never have imagined." That evening, Sarah found herself at the small kitchen table in her modest Brooklyn apartment, her head cradled in her hands as she wrestled with the weight of the decision. Her mother, frail yet wise, sat across from her, a silent but attentive presence. "Sarah, what's troubling you?" her mother asked gently, her voice filled with concern. Sarah sighed deeply, her heart heavy with the burden of her thoughts. "Mr. Walker has proposed that I marry his son, Michael. He says it's to teach Michael the values of humility and responsibility." Her mother's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. "And what are your thoughts on this?" "I'm unsure, Mom. The proposal seems so outlandish and surreal, but the potential benefits for our family are undeniable. It could provide the funds for your treatments and secure Tim's future education," Sarah replied, her voice tinged with both hope and trepidation. Her mother reached across the table, grasping Sarah's hand with a comforting firmness. "Sometimes, opportunities present themselves in the most unexpected ways. You must weigh whether this path aligns with your values and whether it's the right choice for you." Sarah nodded slowly, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on her. "I need to think it through carefully." As she lay in bed that night, Sarah's mind was a tumultuous storm of conflicting emotions and thoughts. The proposal was unconventional, perhaps even absurd, but the potential benefits for her family were undeniable. She resolved to meet with Henry the following day to discuss the terms further, knowing that whatever choice she made would irrevocably alter the trajectory of her life. The next morning, with a sense of determination and resolve, Sarah returned to the Walker mansion. She found Henry in his office, waiting with an air of expectancy and quiet confidence. "Mr. Walker," Sarah began, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, "I have carefully considered your proposal and After much reflection, I have decided to accept." Her voice was steady but carried an undercurrent of both resolve and uncertainty, aware that this decision marked the beginning of a profound and life-changing journey. Sarah sat alone in her modest Brooklyn apartment, her heart heavy with the gravity of Henry Walker's proposal. Her small, cluttered living room, filled with the remnants of a life lived in modesty, seemed to echo with the enormity of the decision she faced. Her mother's hopeful gaze, filled with unspoken trust, and her brother's innocent smile, full of youthful promise, were constant reminders of the stakes. The financial security Henry had promised was not just a lifeline, it was a beacon of hope that could reshape their future. With a deep, resolute breath, Sarah picked up the phone, her hand trembling slightly as she dialed the number Henry had provided. Each ring felt like an eternity. "Mr. Walker, it's Sarah," she said when the call was answered, her voice steady but carrying the weight of her decision. "I've decided to accept your proposal." "Excellent," Sarah Henry replied, his voice a mixture of firmness and satisfaction. "We will begin preparations immediately." The following days at the Walker mansion were a flurry of activity and opulence. The mansion, usually a symbol of power and prestige, was now a hive of frenetic energy, as every detail of the extravagant wedding was meticulously planned. From the floral arrangements to the seating charts, no expense was spared in orchestrating a grand event that would be remembered for years to come. Despite the whirlwind of activity, Michael remained a figure of quiet turmoil. His initial shock at the arrangement had transformed into a reluctant acceptance, though he often found solace in his hidden sanctuary, a private studio, where he channeled his emotions into frenetic bursts of painting. One evening, Michael approached his father with a mixture of frustration and desperation. "Dad, is this necessary? Marrying someone I barely know? Isn't there another way to achieve what you want?" Henry looked at his son with unwavering resolve. "This is for your good, Michael. Trust in my judgment. In time, you will come to understand why this is essential." Meanwhile, Sarah's life outside the mansion was far from peaceful. Her neighbors and co-workers, unable to conceal their curiosity, whispered behind her back and cast judgmental glances her way. Each encounter seemed to intensify her anxiety. One afternoon, as she walked home, her path crossed with that of David, an old flame whose face was etched with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Sarah," David said, his voice tinged with bitterness, "I heard about your engagement. You're marrying into the Walker family." Sarah nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "Yes, David, it's a complicated situation. I'm doing this for my family." David's expression hardened. "And what about us? We had plans and dreams for our future. Are you willing to throw all of that away?" "I'm sorry," Sarah said, her voice breaking under the weight of her emotions. "This is something I have to do. I hope you can understand." As the wedding day approached, the Walker mansion buzzed with preparations for the grand event. The opulence of the occasion seemed to contrast sharply with the uncertainty and unease that hung over the couple. Sarah, dressed in a simple but elegant gown, arrived at the mansion with a heart pounding in her chest. Every step she took down the grand hallway was a step into a future she had not envisioned but felt compelled to embrace. The ceremony itself was a study in contrasts, lavish and grand, yet imbued with an air of solemnity and quiet reflection. Michael, clad in a sharp tuxedo, looked every bit the reluctant groom, his eyes reflecting a mixture of resignation and hope. Sarah walked down the aisle with a grace that masked the turmoil beneath. As they exchanged vows, the atmosphere was charged with a palpable sense of both resignation and fragile hope. They stood together at the intersection of duty and desire, committed to a path forged by necessity rather than choice, yet holding on to the slender thread of hope for a future that might, against all odds, turn out to be brighter than they had imagined. As the ceremony concluded, Michael and Sarah found themselves at the heart of a grand celebration, surrounded by an ocean of well-wishers and extravagant decorations. The mansion, with its gleaming chandeliers and lush floral arrangements, buzzed with the energy of 100 voices. Amidst this sea of opulence and festivity, Michael leaned closer to Sarah, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know this isn't how either of us envisioned our lives," he murmured, his tone laced with sincerity. "But perhaps there is something good that can come out of this." Sarah met his gaze, her eyes reflecting a blend of determination and lingering uncertainty. "We'll have to make the best of it," she replied, her voice steady despite the tumult of emotions swirling within her. As the days and weeks melded into months, Michael and Sarah embarked on the journey of adapting to their new reality. Initially, Michael's reluctance was palpable, but as time passed, he found himself slowly but surely coming to appreciate Sarah's unwavering resilience and dedication. Her commitment to her values and the effort she put into every aspect of their shared life began to break down the walls Michael had built around himself. He started to see the profound value of hard work and the true significance of integrity. In turn, Sarah discovered dimensions of Michael that were previously obscured by his aloofness. Behind the veneer of his distant demeanor, she encountered a man grappling with his own set of challenges and trying to navigate the crushing expectations imposed by his father. Their joint experiences and the shared trials they faced began to forge a deeper connection between them, revealing a growing understanding and mutual respect. One serene afternoon, as they sat together in the mansion's lush garden, the sun casting dappled shadows through the leaves, Michael turned to Sarah with a look of newfound respect. "You were right," he confessed softly. "This situation has revealed so much to me about who I am." Sarah's heart warmed at his admission, a smile playing on her lips. "And I've learned that even in the most unforeseen circumstances, there can be opportunities for growth and understanding." Their relationship, once born out of necessity and obligation, began to evolve into something far more genuine. The mansion, once a symbol of Michael's isolation and the cold expectations of his father, gradually transformed into a space where two individuals from disparate worlds found common ground and developed a meaningful connection. Henry Walker, observing the positive changes in his son and daughter-in-law, felt a sense of deep satisfaction. His unconventional methods had yielded an unexpected but gratifying result: personal growth and redemption for both Michael and Sarah. As Michael and Sarah faced their future together, they discovered that even in the most improbable and challenging situations, there was room for transformation and hope. The journey that began with an unexpected proposal led them to find a profound sense of purpose and connection. Meanwhile, in the days leading up to the wedding, tension had gripped the mansion as last-minute preparations were marred by a sudden and inexplicable sabotage attempt. The chaos that ensued threatened to derail the entire event. After a tense standoff and investigation, the sabotage was exposed and dealt with. With the threat neutralized, preparations resumed smoothly, though the atmosphere remained charged with anticipation. The night before the wedding, Sarah stood alone on the mansion's opulent balcony, her gaze sweeping over the city below. The skyline sparkled with a myriad of lights, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil she felt. Michael joined her, the cool night air offering a brief respite from the emotional intensity. "Tomorrow, everything changes," Michael said softly, his voice a gentle echo in the night. Sarah turned to him, her heart heavy but resolute. "Yes, it does. But maybe change isn't so bad." A genuine smile spread across Michael's face, his eyes filled with warmth and newfound hope. "We'll face it together." The wedding day dawned clear and radiant, with the early morning sun casting a golden glow over the venue. The Walker mansion had been transformed into a floral wonderland, with intricate arrangements lining the pathways and adorning every corner. The grandeur of the setting was awe-inspiring, and guests dressed in their finest attire began to arrive, their murmurs a mix of admiration and curiosity. Sarah stood in a small, elegantly appointed room off the main hall, her heart racing with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Her mother, frail yet filled with an air of unwavering support, fussed lovingly over her dress, a beautiful, understated gown that contrasted sharply with the opulence of the mansion. As Sarah looked in the mirror, she couldn't help but feel that, despite the complexities and challenges ahead, she was embarking on a journey that held the promise of profound change and unexpected discoveries. The grand ballroom was awash in the glow of chandeliers, the lavish decor reflecting the elegance and wealth of the Walker family. The reception, a swirl of opulent gowns and finely tailored suits, buzzed with animated conversations and laughter. Sarah, now Mrs. Walker, was introduced to a circle of well-wishers and acquaintances, each encountering a mix of formal pleasantries and subtle scrutiny. Michael, ever the reluctant host, moved through the crowd with a practiced ease, though his eyes frequently darted towards Sarah, searching for signs of comfort or discomfort. Despite the grandeur of the event, there was a palpable undercurrent of unease as they both navigated their new roles. As Sarah mingled with the guests, she couldn't help but feel the weight of their expectations and the stark contrast between her modest upbringing and the opulence surrounding her. The mansion's grandeur seemed almost overwhelming, a constant reminder of the vast differences between her past and her present. In a quieter corner of the ballroom, Michael's childhood friend Alex approached him. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's been a surreal experience. I never imagined my wedding day would be like this. Sarah's handling it all with such grace, though." Alex nodded. "It's clear she's trying her best. And I think she's starting to see the good in this, despite the challenges." Michael glanced over at Sarah, who was engaging in conversation with a group of guests. Her smile, though slightly strained, was genuine. "I hope so. I know this is all so sudden and unconventional, but I believe we might find some common ground eventually." The evening continued with the clinking of glasses and the soft strains of classical music. As the reception drew on, Michael and Sarah shared a quiet moment at a secluded table away from the hustle and bustle. "You're doing great," Michael said, his voice sincere. "I know this isn't easy." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes reflecting both the exhaustion of the day and the resolve she had found. "Thank you. It's been a whirlwind, but I'm here now. We're in this together." Michael reached out and took her hand, the gesture small but meaningful. "We are, and I promise to do my best to make this work." The evening ended with a sense of cautious optimism. As guests began to depart, Sarah and Michael found a moment of solitude in the garden, the night air cool and soothing against their faces. "Tonight was overwhelming," Sarah admitted, leaning against a marble balustrade. "But I can see the potential for us to find something real here." Michael nodded in agreement. "It's going to be a journey, but maybe it's one we can navigate together." As they stood side by side, looking out over the twinkling city lights, there was a shared understanding between them. Their marriage had begun under unusual circumstances, but there was hope for growth and connection. The path ahead was uncertain, but they were ready to face it together, discovering the possibilities that lay in their unexpected union. As the night drew to a close, Sarah and Michael walked back into the mansion, their steps in sync, their hearts aligned in a newfound solidarity. The journey that began with an unconventional proposal had set them on a path of mutual discovery and transformation. As Sarah began to navigate her new life in the sprawling mansion, the early days were a cascade of overwhelming impressions and bewildering routines. Each day was a blur of unfamiliar faces and disorienting schedules. The mansion's sheer opulence, with its grandiose ceilings, sparkling crystal chandeliers, and exquisitely lavish decor, only served to amplify her feelings of displacement and disorientation. It was as though the grandeur of her new surroundings was a constant reminder of how far she felt from the life she had known. One particular evening, Sarah, feeling adrift and seeking solace, found herself wandering through the cavernous halls of the mansion. Her steps led her to the library, a refuge of calm amidst the overwhelming splendor. She hesitantly crossed the threshold, feeling an odd sense of peace settle over her as she ran her fingers reverently along the spines of the countless books that lined the walls. Each book seemed to whisper promises of escape and understanding, offering a momentary sanctuary from the chaos of her thoughts. The quiet serenity of the library was a stark contrast to the storm raging within her. At that moment, Michael entered the library, his presence immediately shifting the room's atmosphere. The air seemed to thicken with an unspoken tension as he approached Sarah, who was lost in the quiet comfort of the room. "How are you finding your way in this new environment?" Michael asked, his voice gently probing in an attempt to bridge the emotional gap between them. "It's a lot to take in," Sarah admitted, turning to face him with a weary but honest expression. "Everything here feels so foreign, so different from what I'm accustomed to." Michael's eyes softened with understanding. "I can imagine how challenging this transition must be for you," he said, his tone filled with genuine sympathy. "If there's anything you need, any assistance or questions, please let me know. I'm here to help." "Thank you," Sarah replied, offering a small, grateful smile. "I'm still in the process of adjusting to all this." As the days gradually turned into weeks, Sarah and Michael embarked on the challenging journey of adapting to their intertwined lives. The path was not without its bumps. Their differing backgrounds and expectations occasionally clashed, creating moments of tension and discord. One crisp, bright morning, Sarah walked into the kitchen and found Michael amid an exasperated struggle. He was attempting to make breakfast, his frustration evident as he fumbled with the ingredients. "Do you need any help?" Sarah offered, stepping forward with a sense of purpose and compassion. Michael looked up, a hint of embarrassment coloring his cheeks. "I wanted to surprise you with breakfast," he confessed, his voice tinged with a mix of humility and frustration. "But it seems that I'm more of a hindrance than a help." Sarah's eyes sparkled with amusement as she let out a soft, reassuring laugh. The tension in the room began to dissolve, replaced by a shared moment of camaraderie. "Let's tackle this together," she suggested warmly. "I'll show you how to make it right." As they worked side by side, Michael couldn't help but be struck by Sarah's patience and her ability to find joy in the simplest of tasks. Her approach to the mundane was infused with a sense of purpose and cheerfulness that opened his eyes to the small, often overlooked pleasures of life. Through Sarah's perspective, he began to see the world in a new light, appreciating the moments of daily life that he had previously taken for granted in his sheltered and privileged existence. One afternoon, as Sarah continued her exploration of the mansion, she discovered a hidden door in the east wing. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, she gently pushed the door open and was met with a sight that took her breath away. The room beyond was a treasure trove of artistic wonder. Canvases, paints, and unfinished artworks were scattered about, bathed in the warm, inviting glow of the sunlight filtering through the tall windows. It was clear that this room was a sanctuary of creativity and passion. "Michael," she called out, her voice echoing through the expansive room with a sense of awe and excitement. Michael appeared at the doorway, his face reflecting a mixture of surprise and apprehension as he took in the scene. "I see you've discovered my studio," he said, his voice laced with a trace of embarrassment. "These pieces are breathtaking," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration as she moved among the canvases. "Why have you kept this hidden away?" Michael sighed deeply, stepping fully into the room. He looked around at his artistic haven, his expression contemplative. The room, once a private escape, now seemed to hold a deeper significance as he prepared to share its essence with Sarah. "My father never truly approved of my art," Michael admitted, his voice carrying a hint of unresolved tension. "He always saw it as a frivolous distraction, something that diverts my focus from what he deems my true responsibilities." Sarah, her eyes reflecting a profound understanding, met his gaze with compassion. "But this is a core part of who you are," she said gently, her voice imbued with sincerity. "You shouldn't have to bury it or keep it hidden." Michael's expression was a tapestry of gratitude and sorrow, his eyes betraying the inner conflict he felt. "It's not so simple, Sarah," he replied, a shadow of defeat in his voice. "My father has very clear expectations, and I've spent so long trying to meet them that it's hard to imagine deviating now." Sarah reached out, her hand gently resting on his arm, offering warmth and support. Her touch was both tender and reassuring. "Maybe it's time to show him that you can balance your responsibilities with your passion," she suggested softly. "You can be both a devoted son and a dedicated artist." Michael considered her words thoughtfully, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly as he absorbed her advice. "You're right," he said, his tone gaining a note of resolve. "Perhaps it's time to stop hiding and embrace both aspects of who I am." In the weeks that followed, Sarah's humility and kindness continued to influence Michael in ways he had never anticipated. He found himself opening up more, sharing his hopes and dreams with her in ways that felt both liberating and intimate. One serene evening, as twilight gently enveloped the garden in its calming embrace, they sat together on a rustic bench surrounded by blooming flowers and softly rustling leaves. "I never thought I'd find myself saying this," Michael began, his voice contemplative and sincere, "but having you here has brought a depth of perspective to my life that I didn't realize I was missing." Sarah's heart warmed at his words, and she responded with a smile that reflected the joy and contentment she felt in his presence. As the days and weeks continued to unfold, Sarah and Michael began to navigate their new life together, but the underlying tensions and challenges did not fade away. Michael found himself increasingly under pressure from his business associates, many of whom expressed their disdain for his marriage to Sarah with thinly veiled contempt. Michael, one of his colleagues, sneered during a particularly tense board meeting. "Why would you choose to settle down with someone so ordinary? You could have any woman in this city. Why this one?" Michael's jaw tightened in response, his eyes narrowing with a mix of anger and determination. Despite the biting remarks, he maintained a composed exterior. "My personal life is not a topic for discussion in this boardroom," he said firmly, his voice steady and resolute. "Let's focus on the business matters at hand." "How quaint," one woman remarked disdainfully at a charity event, her smile insincere and dismissive. "A cleaner marrying into the prestigious Walker family. It's almost like a fairy tale, isn't it?" Sarah maintained her composure, her smile polite but firm. "Fairy tales often hold more truth than we give them credit for," she replied, her voice steady and calm. One evening, after a particularly grueling day that had left her feeling emotionally drained, Michael found Sarah sitting alone in the garden. Her face was etched with fatigue, and the tranquil surroundings seemed at odds with her weary demeanor. "Hey," Michael said softly, settling beside her on the garden bench. "It looks like you've had a tough day." Sarah sighed, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "You could say that. Sometimes it feels like I'll never truly fit into your world." Michael took her hand in his touch gentle and filled with reassurance. The warmth of his hand was a comforting contrast to the chill of the evening air. "You belong here, Sarah," he said earnestly, his voice filled with sincerity. "Don't let anyone or anything make you feel otherwise." As the weeks turned into months, Michael found himself increasingly drawn to Sarah's unwavering strength and kindness. Her resilience in the face of adversity, her boundless compassion, and her steadfast support began to erode the emotional barriers he had constructed around himself. He was deeply moved by her ability to confront each challenge with grace and dignity. Her inner strength became a wellspring of inspiration for him, guiding him to reevaluate his approach to life and relationships. In Sarah's presence, Michael discovered a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. Her impact on his life was profound, and as he witnessed her navigate the complexities of their shared world with such poise, he felt a deepened appreciation for the qualities that made her uniquely remarkable. However, the deepening bond between Michael and Sarah was soon to be tested by an unexpected and insidious threat. During a crucial business negotiation, a rival competitor, Robert Harris, decided to exploit Sarah's past to destabilize Michael's resolve. Michael Robert began with a smirk that oozed malevolence. "I couldn't help but overhear some rather intriguing stories about your wife. It seems her family has quite a colorful history." Michael's eyes narrowed, a storm of anger brewing beneath his calm exterior. "What are you implying, Robert?" "Oh, nothing of consequence," Robert replied with a feigned air of innocence. "Just that it's curious how swiftly secrets seem to surface." The implication was clear. Sarah's family had encountered financial difficulties, and her father had been involved in a minor scandal years ago. Michael's face hardened into a mask of steely resolve, and he took a deep, measured breath to steady himself. "I refuse to entertain these baseless insinuations," Michael said with unwavering firmness. "My wife is a woman of honor and integrity, and her past is irrelevant to our present and future." As the confrontation came to a close, Michael's determination to shield Sarah from harm only intensified. He saw firsthand how the weight of these attacks affected her, and it only strengthened his resolve to stand resolutely by her side. That night, as darkness enveloped the mansion and the stars sparkled in the night sky, Michael held Sarah close, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the trials they would face together. The emotional toll of the day's events was palpable, but their shared strength became a beacon of hope. "I don't know what the future holds for us," Michael whispered, his voice tinged with vulnerability, "but I promise you this: I will always stand by you, no matter what." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tears of gratitude and unwavering love. "And I will stand by you through every challenge and triumph." Their love, tested by external pressures and internal conflicts, began to solidify and deepen. The challenges they faced only served to strengthen their connection, and they found solace in each other's steadfast support. Their relationship was forged in the fires of adversity, emerging stronger and more resilient. One afternoon, as they strolled through the lush, manicured gardens of the mansion, Michael paused and turned to Sarah, his expression serious yet hopeful. "I've been reflecting," he said, his voice carrying the weight of newfound resolve, "on my father's expectations and the role I've played within this family." Sarah listened intently, her heart swelling with a mixture of hope and pride. She knew that this moment of self-discovery was crucial for both of them. "I've decided," Michael continued, his tone resolute, "that I'm going to take a stand and be true to who I am, rather than conforming to what others expect of me." Sarah's grip tightened on his hand, her eyes gleaming with pride and affection. "That's the person I fell in love with. I'm incredibly proud of you for standing up for yourself." In the weeks that followed, Michael and Sarah faced the multitude of challenges that arose both within the Walker family and beyond with renewed vigor and unity. Their relationship deepened, anchored by a foundation of mutual respect and unwavering commitment. They approached each obstacle with resilience and love, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. The mansion, once a symbol of their difficulties and the weight of external pressures, gradually transformed into a home brimming with shared dreams and a newfound sense of unity. Michael and Sarah's journey was far from over, but they faced it together, their love serving as a guiding light through the darkest of times. As the tension in the conference room reached a boiling point, Michael stood before his board of directors, his voice cutting through the room with a fierce determination. "Sarah's past is irrelevant to her character and our marriage," he declared with unyielding conviction. "Anyone who has a problem with that will have to deal with me." The atmosphere was charged with palpable intensity as Michael faced his board, and Robert Harris, who was smirking with a hint of satisfaction, found himself suddenly on the defensive. The stakes were high, with a major business deal hanging in the balance, but Michael's unwavering stance on defending his wife's honor was a testament to his strength and dedication. Michael and Sarah's journey was marked by trials, but their love and commitment remained steadfast. Together they faced each challenge with courage and unity, proving that their bond could withstand even the most formidable of storms. "This partnership with global tech is critical for our future," one board member asserted, his gaze firmly fixed on Michael. "However, there are serious concerns about the recent negative press surrounding your wife. It's creating a cloud over this deal." Michael inhaled deeply, his jaw clenched in resolute determination. "Sarah's past has no relevance to the merits of this deal. We should be focusing on the immense benefits this partnership offers, rather than allowing personal matters to cloud our judgment." Harris, ever the opportunist, leaned forward with a feigned air of sympathy, his voice dripping with insincerity. "Public perception matters greatly, Michael. If we appear vulnerable or distracted, it could seriously undermine our market position." Michael's eyes burned with a fierce resolve. "I stand firmly by my wife. If anyone has an issue with that, they can take it up with me directly." A tense silence descended upon the room as board members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to navigate the escalating conflict. The atmosphere crackled with tension until a knock on the door shattered the stillness. Sarah entered, her demeanor calm and poised, exuding an air of quiet confidence. "Excuse me," Sarah said, meeting each person's gaze with unwavering composure. "I have a proposal that I believe could address these concerns and strengthen our position." The room fell into a heavy silence as Sarah walked to the head of the table, a stack of meticulously prepared documents clutched in her hands. "I've been reviewing the terms of the global tech deal," Sarah began, her voice steady and authoritative. "There are several key points that could be strategically leveraged to our advantage, and I'd like to present them to you." Henry, who had been silently observing the exchange, raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "Please continue, Sarah." Sarah proceeded to articulate her ideas with precision, laying out a series of strategic adjustments and potential benefits that had been previously overlooked. Her analysis was not only thorough but also insightful, capturing the attention of the board. As she spoke, the skepticism in the room began to dissipate, replaced by genuine interest and intrigue. When Sarah concluded her presentation, a stunned silence enveloped the room. Then, slowly, one of the senior board members nodded in acknowledgement. "These are excellent points. We hadn't fully considered these angles before." Harris's smug expression faltered momentarily, but he quickly masked it with a veneer of professionalism. "This doesn't change the issue of public perception." "Public perception is something we can manage," Sarah countered confidently. "What truly matters is the strength of our position. With these strategic adjustments, we can secure the deal and effectively mitigate any potential fallout." Henry looked at his son with a mixture of pride and contemplation, then turned his gaze back to Sarah. His expression softened as he addressed her directly. "Thank you, Sarah. Your proposal is highly impressive and provides a fresh perspective we desperately need." The board members, recognizing the merit of Sarah's insights, agreed with the proposal. The tension in the room began to lift as the meeting drew to a close. Henry approached Michael and Sarah, his eyes reflecting a blend of pride and contemplation. "Michael," Henry said, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder, "I'm proud of how you've stood by your principles. And Sarah, your contributions have been remarkable. Thank you for stepping up and bringing clarity to this situation." Michael and Sarah exchanged a look of relief and mutual support. They had faced the storm together and emerged stronger, their bond fortified by their shared commitment and resilience. As they left the conference room, the weight of the day's challenges began to lift, replaced by a renewed sense of optimism and unity. "Michael, could I have a moment of your time?" Henry's voice carried a note of seriousness. Michael nodded in agreement, and they both moved into Henry's office. As Henry shut the door behind them, he turned to face his son, his usual authoritative demeanor softened by an unusual gravity. "I must admit," Henry began, his voice carrying an unexpected weight, "I underestimated Sarah. Her insights today were nothing short of remarkable." Michael's gaze was steady. "She's incredibly intelligent and capable, more so than most people realize." Henry exhaled deeply, a flicker of remorse in his eyes. "I've been too harsh, Michael. I wanted this arrangement to teach you a lesson, but perhaps it's I who needed to learn something." Michael studied his father, sensing a vulnerability he had never encountered before. "What do you mean, Dad?" Henry's tone grew softer, tinged with a rare humility. "I see now how deeply Sarah means to you and how much she contributes to our lives. I questioned her place in our world, and in doing so, I was mistaken." Oh, a profound wave of emotion surged within Michael. "I love her, Dad. She's transformed my life in ways I never could have imagined." Henry's stern expression softened into a gentle smile. "Then you have my full support. I see now the depth of your commitment and the value Sarah brings." That evening, during a formal business dinner, Michael rose to make a toast. The room hushed as he spoke, his voice resonant with sincerity. "I want to extend my deepest gratitude to everyone here for your unwavering hard work and dedication. But tonight, I want to especially acknowledge my wife, Sarah, for her extraordinary contributions." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise, her heart swelling with emotion as the room erupted into applause. For the first time, she felt a profound sense of acceptance and recognition. As the evening progressed, Michael and Sarah found solace in a quiet moment on the balcony. The city lights twinkled below, a symbol of their shared journey and triumphs. "Thank you for standing up for me," Sarah said softly, her voice carrying the weight of her gratitude. Michael took her hand gently, his eyes brimming with affection. "And thank you for teaching me what truly matters." Despite the victories, Sarah carried the burden of every skeptical glance and whispered criticism. One evening, after enduring a particularly harsh remark from a guest, she retreated to the solitude of the garden. Tears stung her eyes as she grappled with the weight of the judgment she faced. Michael found her there, the soft moonlight casting a gentle glow on her face, revealing her distress. "Sarah," he called softly, approaching her with concern. "What's wrong?" Sarah quickly wiped her tears, attempting to regain her composure. "It's just everything, the relentless pressure and judgment. I'm not sure I can keep enduring this." Michael's heart ached at the sight of her suffering. He gently took her hand, his voice filled with earnest concern. "Sarah, I had no idea it was affecting you so deeply. Please let me in. Talk to me about what you're feeling." In the quiet of the garden, surrounded by the serene beauty of the night, Michael and Sarah faced their challenges together. Their bond, tested by adversity and external pressures, grew stronger with each shared moment of vulnerability and support. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I feel like an outsider here, Michael. No matter what I do, I can't seem to fit in. And it's not just the guests, even some of the staff look at me like I don't belong." Michael reached out, taking her hands in his. "You do belong, Sarah, more than anyone. You've changed my life, and I can't imagine it without you." Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. "Michael, I don't know if I can stay. The constant scrutiny, it's too much." Michael's grip tightened on her hands, desperation in his voice. "Please, Sarah, don't leave. I love you. I need you by my side. We'll face this together, I promise." Sarah's resolve wavered, the depth of Michael's feelings touching her heart. "Do you mean that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "With all my heart," Michael said, his eyes earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this work." Just as Sarah was about to respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting from sadness to alarm. "It's the hospital. It's about my mother." Michael's concern deepened. "What happened?" Sarah answered the call, her face paling as she listened. "My mother, she's taken a turn for the worse. I need to go to her." Michael didn't hesitate. "I'll come with you." "No," Sarah said firmly, though her voice was strained. "I need to do this alone. She needs me, and I have to be there for her." Michael nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I understand. But know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Sarah packed quickly, her heart heavy with worry as she prepared to leave. Michael held her close. "Take care of your mother, Sarah, and come back to me when you can. I'll be waiting." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she kissed him goodbye. "Thank you, Michael, for everything." At the hospital, Sarah found her mother weak but conscious. "Mom, I'm here," she said, holding her hand. Her mother smiled faintly. "Sarah, my darling, I'm so glad you're here." For the next few days, Sarah devoted herself to her mother's care. The bond between them provided strength, despite the exhaustion Sarah felt. A renewed sense of purpose filled her. Back at the mansion, Michael struggled with the emptiness left by Sarah's absence. He threw himself into his work, but his thoughts constantly drifted to her. He realized that her presence had become the anchor in his life, and he was determined to make things right. One evening, as Michael sat in his studio, lost in his thoughts, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. "Mom is stable now. I'll be home soon." A relief washed over him, and he replied immediately, "Take your time. I'll be here." A week later, Sarah returned to the mansion, greeted by Michael's warm embrace. "I missed you," he whispered, holding her tight. "I missed you too," Sarah replied, her voice full of emotion. In the quiet of the evening, they sat together, the bond between them stronger than ever. The turning point had come, and with it, a new understanding of their shared journey. Michael stood in his office, gazing out over the city skyline. The recent weeks had been a whirlwind of change, but with Sarah's return, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to implement the values Sarah had taught him into his business practices, focusing on integrity and social responsibility. The first step was a company-wide meeting. As the employees gathered, Michael took the stage, his voice steady and confident. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for Walker Industries. We are implementing policies that prioritize ethical practices and community engagement. This isn't just about business, it's about doing what's right." The staff exchanged curious glances, but there was a noticeable shift in the room. Michael's sincerity was palpable, and his leadership began to inspire a collective sense of purpose. Back at the mansion, Sarah and Henry found themselves spending more time together. Henry, once aloof and imposing, had started to soften. One evening, they sat in the library, the crackling fireplace casting a warm glow. Henry began, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "I owe you an apology. I misjudged you and the impact you would have on my son and our family." Sarah looked up, surprised by his candor. "Thank you, Henry. That means a lot." Henry sighed, leaning back in his chair. "You know, when I built this company, I was driven by the fear of failure. My father was a harsh man, never satisfied with anything I did. I swore I would be different, but I became just like him in many ways." Sarah listened, empathy in her eyes. "It's never too late to change, Henry." Henry nodded slowly. "Yes, you're right, and I want to do that. I want to be a better person for myself and my family." The conversation marked the beginning of a new understanding between them. Sarah's presence and Michael's unwavering support had opened doors to healing and transformation. As the months passed, Michael and Sarah continued to navigate the complexities of their lives together, their bond growing stronger with each challenge they faced. The mansion, once a symbol of their struggles, now stood as a testament to their love and resilience. And in the quiet moments they shared, away from the scrutiny and pressure, they found solace in each other, a reminder that their journey was not just about overcoming obstacles, but about discovering the depth of their commitment and the power of love. The end of one chapter marked the beginning of another, filled with promise and hope for a future they would build together, one day at a time. Thank you for joining us on this deeply personal journey through Michael and Sarah's story. We've explored how love, resilience, and personal growth can transform relationships and overcome adversity. Their tale reminds us that even in the face of judgment and pressure, standing by each other and embracing our true selves can lead to profound changes and deeper connections. As we wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. What have you learned from Michael and Sarah's journey that resonates with your own life? Please share one insight or lesson you've gained and how you plan to apply it in your own experiences. Your thoughts and reflections are incredibly valuable to us and to the community. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a comment below, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Your support helps us continue creating content that resonates and connects. Thank you for watching.